Quentin Tarantino is an incredibly special filmmaker. You can't quite describe his style, but you know it when you see it, and you especially know it when you see it being replicated. He's one of the few directors where you can make a legitimate case that every single one of his films is his best, and I'm sure someone's favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is Death Proof. Even the films he's written and never got to sit in the director's seat for are cultural classics like True Romance and Natural Born Killers. But with the recent news that Quentin had cancelled his supposed final film, The Movie Critic, well into pre-production, it got me thinking about what other Tarantino films we almost have but never got to see on the silver screen. Well, today I'm going to talk about 11 of Tarantino's forgotten projects. Now, these aren't all of them, but these are just the ones I find personally most interesting, but I'll quit talking. Let's just get into the video. In 1992, Tarantino released his directorial debut Reservoir Dogs, releasing to critical acclaim. In the film, Tarantino made many references to the Fantastic Four and its side character Silver Surfer, with a poster of the Surfer being in the background of a few shots. It was after this success that Tarantino wanted to make an even bolder passion project, pitching a near 500-page Silver Surfer script to German film studio Constantin Films. Just to put it in perspective, a page of a screenplay usually translates to 1 minute of actual film footage. Despite Tarantino being probably the hottest up-and-comer in Hollywood at the time, Constantin Films passed on the project and instead chose to make the ill-fated 1994 Fantastic Four movie, which never saw an official release. Now, do I think Tarantino would have made a good Silver Surfer movie? I'm gonna be real, bro. If you have the passion to write a fucking 500-page script about anything, let alone the Silver Surfer, you got it, man. But honestly, with how superhero movies were in the 90s and the studio's lack of belief in Tarantino, even if the film got made, it probably would have been a compromised piece of work, and I think it's best if it just stayed on the shelf. D Vega is probably Tarantino's most well-known scrap film outside of The Movie Critic. The movie followed Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction and Vic Vega from Reservoir Dogs, two characters who Tarantino says are related and films are connected. If you remember, in the start of Pulp Fiction, Vincent is talking about his 2-year stay in Amsterdam running a club for Marcellus Wallace. Well, this movie would have taken place in one single weekend in those 2 years, where Vic would have visited Vincent in Amsterdam. There's nothing else known about the film script outside of that, but knowing the stories of Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, we probably could fill in the gaps. Now, why was it canceled? Well, frankly, John Travolta and Michael Madsen were just too old to play younger versions of their characters in the films, and also Tarantino didn't get past the premise I just told you earlier. The film probably would have been great, but I think it's best for Tarantino's career if he moved on away from the Reservoir Dogs Pulp Fiction style of movie, and Jackie Brown wasn't a bad next step. Another superhero film. After being rejected from Silver Surfer, Tarantino shifted his interest to another Marvel character he really liked, Luke Cage. Before making the mistake of writing anything just to be rejected, he met the film rights owner of Luke Cage at the time, a man named Ed Pressman. They talked about the potential of Tarantino heading the film, and despite there being mutual interest, Tarantino thought of Pulp Fiction before any negotiations could go further, and he shifted his interest to that film. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly familiar with the character of Luke Cage, but Tarantino still occasionally comments on this film from time to time, and if he still has a little bit of passion for it, I'm sure he would have made a great film had it been made. This story is actually pretty tragic and one I was really surprised I didn't know about up until now. Very famously known that Tarantino fell in love with movies from frequenting a local store near him called Video Archives, a store he would actually work at in his early adult life. It was at Video Archives where Quentin would meet Scott McGill, one of his co-workers. They both had a similar passion for film and became close friends. In 1983, McGill directed a short film called The Boys. In this film, Roger Avery was one of the characters. Avery wrote Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs with Tarantino. When Tarantino would make his first amateur film, My Best Friend's Birthday, McGill would do the cinematography. However, in '83, McGill and Tarantino would co-write and co-direct a film called Lovebirds and Bondage, a dark comedy following a girl who was institutionalized for erratic behavior caused by the brain damage from a car accident. Her boyfriend, played by Tarantino, was so heartbroken by this, he tries his best to also become institutionalized so he can be with her. Nothing about the film is known outside of this, and technically this film was finished. We don't know anything about the plot, the runtime, or even who else starred in it, but after the film was made, only one copy was made, which was owned by McGill. However, this story would take a tragic turn when McGill would destroy the only remaining copy of the film before taking his own life on July 4th, 1987. I haven't been able to find anything from Tarantino talking about this outside of an episode of The After Show, which is a podcast hosted by Tarantino and Roger Avery. Apparently in the 10th episode of this show, they have a brief talk about McGill, however, I'm unable to find it. It just seems like it was a dark part of Tarantino's young life, especially knowing that McGill took his life just weeks before his 22nd birthday. Very famously, Kill Bill was only supposed to be one film. However, midway through production, Tarantino realized it would have been better as a two-parter, and after that, Tarantino became interested in making a third part, calling it his Personal Dollars trilogy. Ever since 2007, Tarantino has talked about his everlasting interest in the third film. The latest public statement he made was proposing the idea of a third film involving Uma Thurman's character and her daughter, with the daughter being played by Thurman's real-life daughter, Maya Hawke. A third film in the Kill Bill trilogy would be awesome, but it seems like Tarantino will procrastinate on it until he retires. In the mid-2000s, when the James Bond franchise was facing a reset, Tarantino showed interest in directing a film adapting the first James Bond story, Casino Royale. The family of Ian Fleming, the writer of the James Bond books, showed support to Tarantino. However, Eon Productions turned Tarantino down, as he would only do the film if Pierce Brosnan would return to play James Bond, and they wanted a new actor. At the end of the day, the film would be adapted as Casino Royale. However, Martin Campbell would direct and Daniel Craig would play Bond. Django in Hell was supposed to be the sequel novel to Django Unchained. However, Tarantino then wanted to turn it into a movie. However, halfway through writing the film, he restarted the project and turned it into The Hateful Eight. I love Django Unchained more than most people, which says a lot because the film is beloved, and The Hateful Eight is actually a pretty decent film, but god damn, I would have loved a sequel. In December 2017, Tarantino pitched the idea of a new Star Trek movie to Paramount. The plan was for Tarantino to direct the movie and J.J. Abrams would produce. In May 2019, Tarantino said the film was still in production. By June 2019, a script was written and it was going to be R-rated. But in December 2019, Tarantino left the project wanting to make a smaller budget film. I'm guessing he was just tired of dealing with studio execs and wanted to do something independent. Alright, so these next few are going to be a little brief, so strap in for a lightning round. Tarantino was offered to direct a Green Lantern movie in the 90s and he would have full control of the script, but he declined. In 1999, Marvel was looking to make an Ironman film, and knowing Tarantino's former interest in their characters, he was linked with the film. However, the film got cancelled before any further talks. After Death Proof released, Warner Bros. Offered Tarantino a chance to adapt DC character Sergeant Rock, with a script already being written by David Webb Peoples. Tarantino would turn the offer down, but in 2021 he would say that the script was actually pretty good and he'd do a really good job directing it. He still considers it from time to time, but knowing that he's on his last film, I'm guessing a superhero movie wouldn't be how one of the most outstanding critics of the genre would go out. It seems like the only reason we haven't gotten news on a new Tarantino project up until this year is because he's still obsessed with the world of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He wrote a novelization of the book and has in the years since considered doing a spin-off of Rick Dalton, a prequel about Cliff Booth's time in World War II, and even Brad Pitt reprising his role in The Movie Critic before it was cancelled. In my opinion, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Tarantino's second best film, and a continuation of its world would have been a lot of fun. And hey, it's still on the books, as it seems like even going into his next film, it's still on his mind. It seems like even the movies Tarantino hasn't made are incredibly interesting. He's really a once-in-a-lifetime artist, and as much as he says he'll only make 10 films, I hope he's lying, because it seems like everything he commits to touching turns to gold. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to continue this discussion.